Hey, Student Success! Welcome to week 2. So we made it through our very first week. I really enjoyed reading your discussion post and interacting with all of you. Please feel free if you have questions to email me or message me, whatever you need as you are going. Again, because this 8-week session is so packed, please, don't hesitate to ask a question or to check in with me. All right, so this is your week 2 lecture video. But I did want to remind you guys while we're on here that your student services assignment is due by the end of week 8. So we are talking May time, which I know might still seem like a little ways off, but it's going to come quicker than we think. So remember to go into My Stark State, click on Academic Support, Student Success Workshops, and then you're going to see a list of all the workshops that are available throughout the rest of March, which at this point is just a very few, all of April, and then a little bit of May. When you submit your workshop, you are not submitting your, hey, I registered. You're submitting your actual I attended certificate. So just keep that in mind that you have to wait till you actually attend the workshop. All right, so week 2 is over chapter 4 and it runs from March 28th through April 3rd. I will post an assignment video separately. This is just to go over the content for chapter 4. So in our materials folder, I have the textbook link up and running, as well as the chapter 4 slides. So this chapter is over listening, taking notes, and remembering. All very important things as a college student. So the big things in chapter 4 is to, if you are rather new to college or maybe like fresh out of high school, is to really start thinking of college as different, being really responsible for your own learning, managing your time, and looking at learning in this cycle. So how do we prepare for class? So there's a couple different ways. Our text talks about mentally preparing. What is our goal? What are we trying to get out of every class session? How does this class session connect to what we learned previously, what we're going to learn, and to the overall concept of the course? So kind of getting ourselves into that mental space, whether it is a physical class or it is an online class. Being mentally ready is important. Then physically taking care of yourself. If you're in a classroom setting or online, make sure you have your materials. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself in the sense, you're sleeping, you're eating, you're exercising, that kind of stuff. Stuff we know we should be doing, but sometimes we get so busy that we forget to eat properly or, get some exercise in. If you're going to a physical classroom, give yourself plenty of time to get there. And regardless of where you are, home or library or in a class, make sure that other distractions are put away. So if your phone is a distraction, which some of you talked about that in your week 1 post, like you're distracted by your devices. So just make sure they're turned on silent or, tucked in your bag or something so that you're not allowing that to be a distraction. Or maybe other people are distractions. So you want to sit somewhere in the classroom where you're going to be less likely to be distracted by people coming in and out. If you are in a classroom, or like you might hopefully be now listening to a lecture, just get in that right headspace so that you're ready to receive the information. Sit, if you're in a physical classroom, sit and close to the instructor. Sometimes, and I talked about this in some of your discussion posts as I responded, sometimes if you're in a classroom and you're sitting in the back, you might be more inclined to zone out or pull out your phone or, whatever. So if you sit a little closer and you can make eye contact, you're less likely to daze, away. You might be more engaged that way. So it's a good strategy. It's a simple strategy, but it's helpful. So again, you want to focus on what's being said, eliminate as many distractions as you can, and then listen for signals when you're in a classroom or online. Listen to see if the instructor raises their voice, goes a little bit more quickly. If you're in the room with them, what do they write on the board? So those are all ways to kind of enhance your listening. You also want to listen for what's not being said. One of the things I always tell my reading students is read the chapters before the class. So if on Monday you're going to be going over chapter 3 because it says so on the syllabus, read chapter 3 before Monday. That way you can already start building your foundational knowledge, you can start note-taking, and then in the lecture you can kind of look and see, well, did I really gain the most important points? What is the instructor not covering? So you can really start to understand that information a little bit more. You also want to make sure that you are taking notes in a way that is going to be conducive and is going to be effective for you. We're going to talk about that in another couple slides. Ask questions. Oh my goodness, asking questions is sometimes undervalued It's really important. Even if you're not comfortable asking questions in person, stay after class and ask, email and ask, do whatever you need to do, because asking questions is how you learn. It's how you go about. And then sometimes you might want to record lectures. You have to ask permission, but recording lectures is a great way to maybe focus on what's going on during the class period and then re-listen to it later to make sure you didn't miss anything. So here are some what to do if you have an instructor who speaks too quickly. I am guilty of this. Sometimes I go very fast and I have to remind myself to slow down. And I really actually appreciate it when my students say, hey, can you repeat that, or can you slow down a little bit? Because I sometimes forget that I know the material in my classes because I've taught it so many times. I know exactly what I'm saying, how I'm doing it. And I forget every once in a while that oh, this is new to them, or this is, something that is going to take a minute for them to think about. So that's totally fine. It's okay to say, hey, can you slow down? Or, if there's an accent, there are, ways that you can ask, hey, can you just repeat what you said? Or I have a question about that. Or if, on the other hand, your instructor is very quiet. A big thing is just communication. Visit them in their office, send them an email. Those are important things to keep those lines of communication open. All right, so note-taking. Note-taking is important. If you remember in week 1, I talked to you guys about the learning style survey. So if you are a read-write learner, note-taking is really important. Now, if you're a visual learner or an auditory learner, it depends. So that's why it's really important to find the method that is going to vibe with you. And it helps you to have a way that's going to organize and make sense. So note-taking really does support your listening. It allows you to, there is a connection between writing and remembering. It can construct a study guide. There are different types of note-taking methods. This you're going to see a little bit larger if you go into your actual textbook here. In section 4.4, you'll see that this table is a little bit larger, and then it's even going to give examples underneath of the different types of note-taking methods. If you're a visual person, the concept map is really great. I really like Cornell Method. This is a method for students who might struggle with organization in particular. So you set up a concept or a term or a question on the left-hand side, and then you go into detail on the right-hand side. And it really does kind of set up that organizational piece. And so it goes about that and even tells you more about Cornell notes, how to use instructor handouts, and then general note-taking tips on how to be prepared. So check that out, especially if you don't really have a note-taking method that works for you, or maybe you're looking to change it up a little bit. But whenever you are taking notes, obviously you want to be prepared, have your information there. Something I learned really quickly on as a student is to label and date all of my notes, because that was so difficult for me to oh my gosh, when did this happen? When did they talk about that? And sorting through things. If I put my date in my notes, I was able to kind of go back and cross-reference my syllabus and cross-reference the textbook. And so it's really helpful. You want to not capture everything the instructor says. That's impossible. And you're going to spend your entire time worrying about that you got every single word down. So you just want to pay attention to the main points, anything that they write down or anything that's on a slide, and leave space so that you can go back and fill things in. Maybe use some shorthand, and then review your notes as quickly as possible, usually that same day if you can, because you can be oh, you know what, I forgot I needed to go fill in this section, or hey, this didn't make sense, I need to ask about this before I forget. Just kind of cementing that knowledge and really spending time with the information. What if you miss class? Here are some things that might seem kind of obvious, but it's important to remember. If you miss class, check with your instructor to say, hey, is there anything I missed? Can I make this up? Sometimes the instructor teaches the same class a couple days a week, so some instructors are fine with you coming. If you can't come on your Monday class, for this one time, you might be able to come on the Tuesday class if they're in the same kind of place that your Monday class is. But that's always a question you can ask. Check to see if there's a classmate. You want to check their notes. Always look at the syllabus to see what's going on. A big thing is just be aware and check in. And then the other part of this chapter talks about long-term memory, taking information and converting it from your working memory to your long-term memory. And so a lot of that has to do with making connections from your everyday life to what you're learning, because learning only has meaning when it has meaning to you. So if you cannot see why information is relevant, you're probably not going to remember it. So you want to make connections, use personal examples. Picture superiority effect is when you use images, visuals, Words and images are really powerful, so if you can connect words with pictures, that's really helpful to the memory process. Take information that is really large and break it down into chunks. Repeat information. Testing is really helpful for memory because honestly, we can remember information forever. Literally, our brains are designed to do that. The problem is when we can't pull it out of our memory. That's where the issue is. We have trouble retrieving. And so ways to avoid that is, first of all, storing information in a way that makes sense. So maybe you use acronyms, mnemonics, maybe you make personal examples, or I always make like little songs and things just to kind of remember. So storing the information, and then practice retrieving it. So give yourself a practice test, use flashcards, study with a partner, all of those things. Okay, so those are different memory techniques. So that is the chapter 4 lecture. I encourage you to go back into the actual chapter 4 text and take a look at the concepts in here. So you can see setting yourself up. Are you ready for class? Listening, note-taking, and memory. Take a look at those sections. Maybe you really struggle with memory, so that's the section you really want to spend some time in. Or maybe you want to learn some more note-taking tips. You want to really pay attention to that section. So I encourage you to really look at those particular sections that are going to be helpful for you where you are as a student so that you are getting the most out of our text and out of our class. All right, I will be back with our week 2 assignment video shortly. Bye.